I'm your host, Marty Hitzman, Director of Digital at EMPIST, and today I'm joined here with two colleagues, Bennett Scher and Ken Hughes, VCIOs at EMPIST. I got this.
Do it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, this is our inaugural cast, so let's see what happens here. Anyway, our first story here today is about this ancient PR system in Maine. So here's the title of the story: Maine's ancient HR system limps on. So the state of Maine's HR and payroll is, as the Portland Press Herald describes it, run by a 40-year-old system programmed in an obsolete language only one state employee knows how to use.
Yikes.
Yeah,
Risky.
crazy. And the system had already outlasted a 2016 attempt to replace it that flopped. Not sure why it flopped. Maybe
Had
they
some
didn't have
experience
EMPIST.
with that.
Yeah. Another attempt, which was supposed to be wrapped up in 2020, imploded in mutual acrimony this past March as Workday, the company hired to roll out the new cloud-based system for Maine, walked away from the project.
Wow.
So,
Big company Workday.
yeah. So what do you think about that?
Well, I was kind of giggling and I'm being sarcastic, but also serious, where we deal with a lot of legacy systems that should be upgraded or are managed very manually by different people or legacy employees who have stuck around and understand the system, but they're all ticking time bombs. And if this is a bigger picture example, maybe of something we see more of the small to medium-sized business space, this happens all the time.
Yeah, I
And
would
it's
it's
yeah.
not just the technology that you're leaving, but what if this person goes out and gets hit by a pie truck
Or
and
wins
can't
the
come to
lottery.
work?
Wins the lottery,
Wins the
walks
lottery,
away.
they quit.
Yeah, that's actually exactly where I was going. Operational risk is what came to my mind. Not so much of the software, but that you're so focused on one person. So documentation sounds important to me, and cross-training with that, as well as keeping your systems modern. So you're not in that crisis situation.
And imagine the challenge if, let's say, you were this sole person who knew this software. Why would I, as a new employee, want to learn some legacy software that's going to be phased out? That doesn't help my resume or my career growth unless I somehow work for Maine for 20 more years. But they would never keep it going. So all the more reason why these things fall off the table and become less and less valuable and more of a risk.
Yeah, risk to business growth or even just efficiency in government. Wouldn't we love to all see that, right? Yeah. So any horror stories you've seen, Bennett or Ken? Or
Yeah, I mean, even around this, I have a couple. I could start with one, and won't name names obviously, but it is an auto insurance provider. Long kind of family-owned company, but been through probably at least 2 or 3 decades of ownership, providing insurance quotes to people. I believe it's nationwide, and it's a very similar situation. They were on the that IBM server. I can barely even think of the name, like an Access
like an
server.
AS400 or something?
AS400. Yep, thank you. AS400. It's before my time. And
I'm aging myself then.
Yeah,
I-Series.
a little bit, but yeah, Ken would know more about IBM than any of us. It was an AS400 database server. It had a lot of custom coding, a lot of data in there. It's very similar to the article. They ran into some bottleneck points, if you will, where they had to make sure the data was getting backed up to tape drives and shipped over to Iron Mountain. So they had their backup copies, and once it failed, but then they even somehow managed to buy another one. This is probably about 5 or so years ago, and then they were running off this AS400, and then lo and behold, there was one gentleman who knew how to code and develop, or manage the server, if you will, with his that custom language. I don't even.
It's RPG. So.
Yeah, whatever it was. And he was a legacy employee. He wasn't going anywhere, but he became a bottleneck, even unfortunately to them. Anytime they needed changes or to change like policy pricing or some day-to-day like fast things that they would need maintenance on, if he wasn't available, they were dead in the water. And even my team, we were all looking at it. Some of my server team, we could, just like how you mentioned, Workday walked away from the deal. We couldn't support it in any way, even if we tried to earn their business or do support for them. And it was a pain point. And I guess the last thing I would say is, even when we kept kind of talking with them, it was almost, they knew there was a parachute, if you will, or an exit plan, But even just thinking about going down that path, probably like what the article's referencing, was just like too overwhelming to them to go forward with.
Well, in that case, I mean, that's really just like a gut rehab of a house, right? Don't you just have to pull the Band-Aid off and like, hey, we were on this system,
Yeah.
we're not anymore. Get the other system up running in parallel.
Yeah, and that everything I heard from ownership was it could very negatively affect day-to-day operations. They could stop booking business and revenue, which would hurt them, and it would be some large endeavor. And I think they had entertained different offers.
That's an if and when though
Yeah.
situation. I mean, like, it's not, oh, when is this going to blow up in your face? It's going to blow up, so why not at least blow up with a little backup? Like.
Yeah, and I think just that part, I think one thing that kept them relatively peaceful at night was they were willing to convert to paper documentation, handwritten paper documentation, sharing things across.
Let's
their
not worry about a
teams.
fire. Huh?
Yeah, that's what they were dealing with, and
They could put it on microfiche or something like that. Take pictures of it and then send it to the library.
yeah, and I know we're joking about it now, and they took it seriously too at the time, but their hands were tied, and it was a tough one.
Well, I mean, so let's say we run into a situation like that. Do we walk away or do we just provide the advice of, hey, here's the bottom line is going to happen. Might happen tomorrow, might happen 10 years from now, but, what do you want to do? We're in a position right now to help you.
Yeah,
Well,
just
the
in
key
my-
is, I think, just clarity of communication. If you're in an IT relationship with a provider, then we would need to be very clear that this poses considerable peril to your operations, and we're willing to do this, and this is where things end. But it's the responsible thing to do to raise those subjects and make sure that it's understood where things begin and where things end.
And most businesses, even like an insurance, like they have books of business. So there's health, there's life, there's auto or whatever it is. So couldn't you just take like the the minimally profitable part of that and like test it on that first? And like, okay, this works. Let's roll.
Yeah, I think they kicked around a lot of these ideas, and just to explain, referencing the article and this is that it became a lot of headaches.
Yeah.
Where I think they kept alluding to like kind of this attitude of we wish we would have done this sooner, wish we could have made a change sooner, and I think they missed that mark.
Yeah. Well,
mark in the road.
Sooner or later that car's breaking down and you're walking home. So,
Yeah.
Ken, what do you got, man? Anything?
Sure. Well, thinking about tech disasters, and one that I experienced, and some of our listeners or viewers will have experienced, was Y2K. I think that has to be a top 10 disaster in computing history, and I'll say probably the biggest disaster up to that moment in the history of computing. So a lot of IT vendors and contractors did really well. I happened to be selling code remediation services at that time, so
I love that code remediation.
it was a good place. There was a lot of COBOL out there that only allowed for 2 digits in the year, and maybe people thought that the systems weren't going to be there in 99, 2000. But
We'll just
they
go to
were.
01, right? Start
Yeah.
over again.
Yeah. Well, they weren't able to accommodate that, or there was probably some 100-year things that just wouldn't accommodate that. So, and there were rumors that planes were going to fall out of the sky, all sorts of things. So there was incredible resources, effort, distraction, opportunity cost to fix this problem, which perhaps was foreseeable. So when the clocks struck midnight, I was comfortably ensconced in a great celebration on Marco Island with a bunch of people. The world did not come to an end.
I had a bathtub full of water, even though like I had,
You
we
were-
didn't even have like
What's that called?
it was just pressure.
You
know,
were a
like-
prepper before preppers were a thing.
Totally. I'm
Okay.
still prepping.
So why do we include this? Well, these predictions of doom did not come to fruition, so we're not really talking about that. The original disastrous decision was to keep using for longer than was necessary or prudent the double digits for that date field. So the need to have a long focus in time rather than just the pressing requirements of the business situation and the technology that drives accomplishing the requirements of the business.
Yeah. So this sounds like a story that actually these two didn't work out and they're still in. That's
Yeah.
Maine has a problem and so does this
Yeah.
insurance company.
Yeah.
Like the Y2K thing was solved because everybody, we better solve this because we don't want planes flying out or dropping out of the sky. But there's a good story there that, hey man, preparation and then doing something about it is better than taking no action.
Oh, yeah.
No action's not going to solve the problem.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting at that time too. There were, I don't know, disbelievers. It was hard in some cases to motivate customers to do it. I don't know why there could be disbelief, but
I had a family member pull like tons of cash, like thousands of dollars in cash, and stick it under her mattress.
Nice.
You know?
Nice.
I'm like, what are you doing?
Those, you got the people who bury their head in the sand, I think. is
Yeah, that's what
you're
happened,
alluding
sure.
to. That happens to this day.
if you can't envision a solution to it, then you ignore it, right? You suppress. If you have no vision of a solution, then you suppress that there is a solution, and so you get inaction.
I think there's probably, like just from our business, like there's solutions for everything. You just got to be willing to take the leap, plan it out. Of course, don't be, flippant about it. You got to systematically break things down and set them back up in a way that is forward looking, helping your business grow rather than, keeping it stagnant or whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other ones you got?
Well, I guess that was a kind of a similar impending disaster, which was more specific to that article. I have plenty of I was actually talking with Dane, our super fan, of just different hacking stories, business email compromise that have negatively affected businesses. And I think we had a list of even just some of the hacks in mainstream media, but I think I could go into a couple stories. I think a lot of them are similar themes of what we were just discussing: inaction, false sense of security, not doing implementations of things that they probably should be doing, and then definitely lack of training and communication. Some of the financial stories really even left a pit in my stomach that led to business for my company at the time, managed IT business, but it was pretty wild west hearing some of the stories and it really extortions, man in the middle attacks, spoofing to.
What's a man in the middle attack?
Oh, sure. So, one of my favorite, I think favorite's the wrong word, but one of the most interesting stories I saw was a small business that was trying to work to get venture capital funding, private equity funding, and the private equity firm was emailing our true business contacts at the small business. They're emailing them. They're talking about the deal sheet, if you will, how much money is going to be exchanged, when they're going to do it, all that. And then the real people at the company who we were working with are emailing them back. But as this unfolded, a rogue actor, a hacker, if you will, a bad actor, I think is a better term, got into the client's email. So was able to send emails directly as if they were the client, but then on the other end, they did a domain spoof of the venture capital firm. So they didn't actually get to the venture capital firm as well. But then the point was,
Explain a domain spoof.
So if it was John Smith at Venture Capital 123, they had Joan Smith, like JOOHN, change his name a little bit. Really on the domain side, they would do at Venture Capital, VEIN, tier capital 123. So just a small change, and it was a small, like one or two letters from this venture capital firm to where, and then unfortunately, and this is why people need to be diligent and do training, the actual users of this company I'm referencing didn't notice that it wasn't the right email address.
And obviously you're going to get to what happened.
Right, so that's where they're going about their day-to-day, and the real people with this client I'm mentioning think they're emailing the venture capital firm, when in reality the bad actor's in the middle, intercepting the messages, responding as if they're the venture capital firm, and then also on the other side, made a rule on the real client's emails to delete the real emails from the venture capital firm. Ipso facto, I'll try and keep it short, where they ended up, the bad actor said, "Send money here."
There's always cash involved.
Right.
Yep.
which was not our client's
It was a bad
true
actor,
banking
right? Yeah.
account. Right.
Yeah.
So then the venture capital firm actually ended up thinking it was confirmed that they were sending money to this small company when they were actually sent it to the bad actor, and I believe it was like $250,000.
Oh my God.
And it was just lost in the wind. I think the FBI got involved. They did the insurance claim. But it
Hey,
was.
you know,
was
EMPIST,
easy.
we prevent this all the time, you know, from happening. So,
Yeah, and that's why there's a plethora of services now that specifically deal with business email compromise and really having some end user vigilance and then some proactive security measures and training can really stop it from
Yeah.
happening. Yeah.
So, putting on or keeping on your service provider hat, how big of a responsibility does the service provider have to bang the drum on the very real exposure that our clients face?
Yeah, great question. That's probably one we deal with all the time. And it's easier said than done sometimes, I would say, for even some of our accounts listening or whoever would tune in. You know, you can stress the importance of insurance all the time, but people don't have to do it. And sometimes it takes anyone, myself included, to learn the hard way. So I don't know how we could put that message out there that, you know, I think it was said, a fool learns from their own mistakes, but a wise man learns from others' mistakes.
Yep.
And if you could hear that out of this meeting, please do, because it's not if, but when you said that. And I don't even like using really fear tactics, if you will, but it's just common.
no, but it's
knowledge. Gonna
mitigation.
happen.
Yeah, it's mitigating, you know, exposure. I mean, like, think about it. Like, you know, I just bought a new car. I had to add that car to the insurance policy.
Yeah.
I could have gone, you know, man, just drive around for a little
You
while
get
and see
30
what
days.
happens.
You get
Yeah,
30 days
but I
for
mean,
free,
like,
right? Yeah.
you're. I'm trying to mitigate, you know, problems. I'm not trying to like get myself into one and expose myself. And I think like keeping yourself exposed is not a good idea, especially in this business climate. There's just bad actors, as you say, climbing around everywhere. So, yeah, I think we'll wrap it up here, you know, and save some more stories. I'm sure there's a ton of them, and maybe some, you know, parables that might help people take some action here. But we'll end this Tech Bite episode here with Ken Hughes and Bennett Scher. Thank you guys for your stories.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.